Very nice. All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for sitting in the back, making me feel comfortable up here. I know most of you are familiar with Creminelli. We're owned by a parent company, and that's Charcuterie Artisans. What does that mean? A private equity company bought both companies back in 2020. The cool thing is they kind of just let Creminelli do what Creminelli does and Del Duca do what Del Duca does. Between the two of us, we do a lot. We pretty much cover everything, which is why you see that boilerplate, the nation's most complete charcuterie producer. So going into our capabilities, we do a lot. There are two sites. We have one in Salt Lake City, which is where Creminelli is headquarters. We have one in Rhode Island, which is where Del Duca is headquartered. Between the two, it's just shy of 1 million square feet. We have one of the facilities in Rhode Island that just does mortadella. And its wheelhouse in Rhode Island is they built the business on co-manufacturing and private label. They started, decades ago in Italy and then moved here to the US. But between the two companies, we do a little bit of everything. We do bulk sliced, we do, mortadellas, whole muscle, cooked product, ground fermented salami. And that includes your bulk, your food service, sliced items, chubs, paninis, a little bit of everything, which we will go through. Most of our product is sourced in North America. It's domestic sourcing North America. I'd say like 98%. We have a couple of product lines that are imported for specific customers that comes from Europe. Moving on to the next page, you'll see a little, you can go to the next. I'm actually going to take over again. I wanted to share a video with the team. And it just kind of highlights what we do as a company, and this is footage between both plants. There's no sound if you're wondering. This is our, whole egg prosciutto line. You see a lot of legs hanging in the walls. We have walls and walls of prosciutto. There's usually about 350,000 legs in the aging rooms. They age from a year to a year and 3 months, just depending on what kind of product line. We do a humane Serrano style, which is aged longer. Pretty brief, but this video is available to you. If you're meeting with customers, please show them to talk about what we do. I know it's pretty brief, but these decks as well are also available. I have basically what I'm showing you, but we have a front-facing customer deck as well. So moving into that, we do 3 main things. And it's our category leading brands. Like I said, most of you are familiar with Creminelli fine meats. We go to slide 4. There we go. All right. So starting with Creminelli, I said most of you are very familiar with that. Our anchor account with Euro USA is Whole Foods. We're in every Whole Foods division. And one thing that really stands out, and I show this to everyone, is this 2-ounce prosciutto right here. This is the #1 prosciutto in units in the US, and it has been for years. If any customer carries one item, it better be this. And we encourage people to usually carry 2 facings. Typically, in a high-moving Whole Foods store, they move like 19 units per store per week. And on the lowest end, we usually see about 7 units. So just super high volume. It's got a really good price point. The quality is there. This is the #1 item. Creminelli is known for being humanely raised, organic spices, and another call out on the tray you'll see here is 80% PCR. Our small 2-ounce trays, meat and cheese, and crackers, they're in the 80% PCR. The larger format trays, these are up to 50%.
Did you say the prosciutto is the #1 seller?
In units in the US, and it has been for like 5 or 6 years. You can go and look in Nielsen, you'll see the same information. So organic spices, humanely raised. People are like, well, what does humanely raised mean? That means 100% vegetarian fed diet, ABF pork, antibiotic free, no synthetic nitrates or nitrites, no gestation crates, no farrowing crates. They don't clip the tails of the pigs. They don't clip their teeth. They get to live pretty free. They also get to graze on open ground as well. So they spend time inside and outside. Happy pig makes good product. The better it does. It truly tastes better. And you can really taste that in Creminelli's product. So that is kind of like, you look at it, you're good, you're better, you're best. Creminelli is the best out there. I've tried a lot of salami. I've tried a lot of prosciutto over the years. I've been with the company for 8 years. Creminelli truly is the best just overall producer in my mind. There are some other companies that do really, really good prosciutto, some of the imported lines you're familiar with. But overall, as a company, it's the best stuff I've ever tried. And then any questions about that? I know most of you are familiar with that. What you're not familiar with is the other part. Creminelli is about a sixth of the size of Del Duca. Del Duca has been around much longer, and it has this item right here. I always show this too. The thing that's cool about the Del Duca product line is it has vacuum-packed, shelf-stable, pre-sliced meats, and that goes from mortadellas to salami, to just salami, pancetta, porchetta, coppa. And then this item right here is a 6-ounce vacuum-packed sliced prosciutto. This has 240-day shelf life. This is the #1 item in dollars for a prosciutto item in the US. So that's kind of like, they complement each other very well. Del Duca overall is a lower price point. It's not going to be the humanely raised, but it's still premium conventional pork. It's a lot of our competitors, which you carry, coming from the same farms. So still very high quality, but it's kind of like that step down. It appeals to more consumers, broader consumer base. Call it like 60% of consumers out there are buying products in this area. The other 20% are about here, and 20%, which is growing, is the private label sector. Speaking of that, we do another product line, and like I said before, we do co-manufacturing and private label. That's kind of what they built their business on. And we have an entire white label lineup. And I have the item catalog for those of you here who have a physical copy. We have a full, it's towards the back, there is a full product line of just white label. And the idea behind white label is it makes it look like it was made in the store. So we sell it for cheaper than Del Duca, but it's the exact same quality, it's the exact same product. It has this label on it. It's going to be an EDLP, and there's not going to be any promotions with it. Every once in a while, we might run something if there's a customer that's really getting behind, branded business and white label. We'll discuss throwing promotions behind it. But we do snack packs, we do pre-sliced, we do chubs, all in the white label business as well. So that's kind of that thing I was talking about, you're good, you're better, and best. A question I get asked often are, how many brands should I carry? It just depends, really. I don't think there's a good answer for that, but you need to have all 3 points. You need to have that high quality, the premium consumer covered, the everyday consumer buying, Del Ducas, Columbus's, things like that, and then your white label, private label. Does that kind of all make sense? Any questions on that? All right. And if there are, please raise and you let me know.
Is there any pork difference between Creminelli and is this breed specific at all, Creminelli? Are they using like Berkshire hogs?
It's a Duroc Berkshire cross mix.
And they're not doing that for the Del Duca?
There's some, like I said, the farms are so big and it's coming from everywhere. But with Creminelli, there are, Cristiano Creminelli, the founder, he told me there's about 136 farms that we specifically get pork from.
And it's primarily Berkshire or Duroc?
Yeah, that is the primary breed.
Is he still involved with the company?
Yeah, so Cristiano, he lives in Italy right now, but he comes here for like months at a time. Anytime we have a big customer meeting, he's still helping develop all the new products for the company. We're making like an Espelette salami right now. That's one of the, lots of things like that. He's still very much involved, but he did move back to Italy because of family. His parents are old. They actually have a factory in Biella, which I'm going to get into on the next slide. I know some of you are familiar with the family story just because Euro USA kind of started at the beginning because of Whole Foods. Whole Foods was one of our biggest supporters right from the get-go. But with the Creminelli family story, they've been doing this since as far back as they can tell, about the 1700s. They still have a factory there. His brother runs the factory there. His dad, he still goes down and talks to the workers and checks on the salami. That's his dad there in the bottom picture. And it's in Biella, Italy, in the Piedmont region, which is, if you look, there's a little map, northwest corner of Italy, right at the base of the Alps. And one reason people are like, well, how did you end up in Salt Lake City? There's a few reasons for that. He met 2 of the other founders at the Torino Olympics in Italy. And they just met and they were talking about this, and then they're like, hey, you need to come to America. There's nobody doing this. So in 2006, he kind of came over and then started, and the climate in Salt Lake City, I don't know if any of you have been there, the valley is surrounded by mountains. So you kind of get a very controlled, cooler air It gets really hot and dry during the summer, but that's kind of the thing is it's dry. It's very controllable. You don't have to worry about big swings in humidity. So that's why they settled in Salt Lake City, along with that's where two of the other founders live. And I remember there's a market in downtown Salt Lake City where Cristiano used to sleep in a cot. And he bought an apartment, but it was about 2 hours away. He didn't know that. He didn't speak any English. I remember him telling me like he used to go and check on the salami at 2 a.m. in the morning and the cops would stop him and be like, what are you doing? Didn't speak any English, but he had a key. But it's just crazy to think, you know, he's one of the most humble people that I've ever met, and he loves what he does. And that passion totally translates into this product. Like I said, it's the best of the best. With Creminelli, it's not about the spices. You know, it's not about how much can I taste fennel in your product. It's about the pork, it's about the pig. And that's kind of where you taste the difference. High quality pork, you know, supplemented by whatever spice mix, whether it's wild boar, whiskey, fennel, red wine, Barolo red wine. That's kind of the thought process behind Creminelli. Any questions on that? All right, well, moving into Del Duca. Del Duca has been around in the US for decades, and it started when the Dukovich family, Stefano and Carolina, they lived in war-torn Europe, had to get out of there. They ended up going to Italy. They are related to the Principe family, but kind of did their own thing, and they used to make make salamis and sausages, and then the kids would ride their bikes and go deliver them. And then they decided, well, we want to do the American dream. So they came over to the US, settled in Rhode Island. It's got a lot of space, and it was really good to start new companies with like taxes and things like that. A lot has changed. The company, like I said, has totally exploded, and most people don't know. People don't know that between Creminelli and Del Duca, it's one of the largest charcuterie producers that can make any kind of salami in the US. It's in Mapleville, Rhode Island. And you see here, I've got the old Daniele badge. The company was originally started as Daniele Foods, and a lot of people are very familiar with that. And back in 2021, we decided like the brand didn't have an identity. The packaging was all over the place. They didn't actually have a marketing team. So we totally rebranded. They cleaned up a lot of the ingredients, moved everything to nitrate free. But a lot of people, I said, they're more familiar with Daniele. All right, any questions on that? Cool.
Do you carry Del Duca?
Not yet. And that was one of the reasons I actually sent a bunch of samples, which this is what's left. There was probably 3 times as much. It ended up in the hands of the purchasing team. And this is something I've been talking to Tim Wiesen about. And I know he said he was him and a bunch of other people, Erica Wright, tried the product, which is great. But there's a little bit left. So this is kind of, I know there's a big focus to trim down how many brands am I carrying in my warehouse and then what items I'm carrying, just because there's so many. The charcuterie category is very saturated. There's a lot of people doing a lot of the same thing. And that's something I also want to talk about, and that's specifically for innovation and changing, like we call it your Italian hardware. Everyone's got your prosciutto, your coppa, your Genoa, and your soppressata. But there needs to be some new innovation, there needs to be some life kind of pumped into the company, and we're starting down that road. We're trying to look at things differently and get some new blood pumped into the category. Sorry, I'm a little behind on slides. This was just kind of high-level information. I think it's good, and it's just kind of breaks this down very simple. This is the cuts of the pig, cuts of pork, and what product lines come from that cut. You start at the head. I rarely see anything done with that. A lot of time it'll go into like meat mixes, but you see like a specific item is that salami di testa. There's a lot of lean there because it's a big part of the muscle. The neck, which you're going to be most familiar with, is coppa. Coppa is a whole muscle cut, and this is Creminelli sliced coppa. This is something we're going to try here in a little bit. We're going to make a charcuterie board. It's very, very good. That's kind of the most thing. And you see coppa, capicola, capicolo. It's literally the same thing, just called something different. It's all the same product, though. There's really not much different. Back fat. A lot of back fat goes into like the mix of the meat, and specifically for a back fat specific cut, you're going to see lardo, and it's basically just fat. It's actually very, very good. It's very buttery. You can put just a little bit of seasoning in there, and you can just eat it. A lot of people cook it up and mix it with other dishes. It's very good. Ribs, there's not a specific cut that goes for rib, that's a specific salami. Like I said, a lot of times the meat gets used for everything. In Italy, they use every part of the pig, including like the feet, the nose, they do something with it. Loin and tenderloin, you see some specific cuts. That's also not very common outside of porchetta. Porchetta is one, it's a cooked, rolled piece of this. It's very good, but that's part of the lean mix that goes into a lot of pigs. Ham, that is the king of the pig. Oh, except for in America, it's actually the belly because we love bacon. But the ham is prosciutto, and you see prosciutto crudo, that is just a whole leg prosciutto. You see that, and a lot of time people get tripped up on these names. Another one you see, prosciutto di Parma, that is, DOP for the Parma region. Prosciutto San Daniele, same thing. Jamon Serrano Iberico, same thing. Prosciutto cotto, that means cooked. This right here is, if there's any one item I like to sample with customers when I can, it's this. It's so good. It is a cooked ham. It is a whole leg of prosciutto. And the particular method for this is it doesn't have any additives in it. They raise the temperature, and then once it reaches that, they slowly raise it a little bit more, slowly raise it a little bit more, and that makes for a very, very tender, juicy cut. All right, like I said, the ham, that's prosciutto. Prosciutto is the #1 selling charcuterie item in the US. Everyone's familiar with it at this point. The belly, pancetta. Pancetta is delicious. That's the Italian bacon, basically. It's usually got a little bit more fat content than lean content. The shoulder also goes a lot into meat mixes. I used to work in the receiving team, and I remember getting these full-size combo bins, and that was something that was always separate, was pork shoulder. Hoof and skin, like I said, you don't see a lot, but there are a few. Mortadella is, it says skin that is ground. We don't use skin in our mortadella. It's just, mortadella is fancy bologna. That said, items like mortadella, coppa, and pepperoni, those are what's driving a lot of the growth in the category. And then the jowl. The jowl, you get guanciale. It's actually very good too. I don't know if anyone here, it's a little more of a specialized item. I love it. Good thing to try. Any questions on the pig? All right. Moving into categories, like I said, we don't need to spend too much time, but this is basically how the category is looked at from our perspective. Other people might look at it differently. But you've got whole muscle dried. The big ones there are going to be like coppa, prosciutto crudo, bresaola. Bresaola is beef, pancetta, lardo. So basically, they just cut off part of the pig, and then they hang it, they dry it, they age it, put in the spices, and then it's done. There's no cooking, there's no alteration of the product. And then you get speck, which is whole muscle dried, that is smoked as well. Speck is very, very good. And then you get whole muscle cooked, our prosciutto, it says prosciutto cotto, spiced ham, capicola. Like I said, capicola is basically coppa that is cooked. Going into ground meat, you hear people call it ground fermented. That's going to be your everyday. This is a ground fermented salami. This is also a ground fermented salami. Basically, you get the pork, you get the fat, you get the spice. The meat goes into a grinder, chops up into small pieces, goes on a conveyor belt, goes into a machine that mixes it with the spices, and then you dump it into another machine that's going to push it through a casing. Casing goes into the aging room, sits in there. It's a short period of time, and then it goes into the drying rooms. Ground meat cooked, that's where you get your mortadellas, pepperoni, hot dogs. Those are ground meat that are cooked. Any questions on the categories? Pretty simple, I hope.
Yeah, that's a great slide.
All right. So we try to make this just simple. I could go into like the science, but that stuff is just, it's complicated, but it's really the same process as cheese. If you know how cheese is aged, mold is your friend. The hairier, the moldier the salami, the better it's going to taste. Yes, there are good molds and bad molds, but if you see white, even if you see blue and green, it's totally fine. I know we're used to like bread, or if it's like cheese, yeah, you want to throw that away. And like, why is it different? A lot of that is because this is a living environment. It's in a gas flush, but there's a casing on there. And one difference you'll see just between, see if I can get a good example. So you can see there's a little bit of white on this. It's not cornstarch. People used to like powder their stuff to make it look like it was, artisanal. This is good. This is what you want. It's okay to have that on there. I understand like some consumers are like, oh, it's gross. I don't know what that is. Most people these days know. Some people don't, but that's okay. If you get black mold, that's when you say like, okay, there's probably organisms are growing in a way you don't want them to. That's when you throw it away. But mold gives the salami its flavor. You put dextrose or sugar, whatever the company does, into the salami, and then you introduce bacteria to it. The bacteria eat the sugar, and then they produce lactic acid. And you balance that lactic acid with a certain temperature and a certain aging time to balance out the sweetness, the taste of the pork, and the lactic acid. And then you slow down that process, which kills the bacteria. And then, like I said, with this, it's still in a living environment, it's growing. The difference here, you see, this is a Del Duca chub. This is a raw chub. There's no, by raw, I mean, there's no casing, and then it's vacuum packed. It's the only difference. It doesn't have the casing on it. It could still grow, especially if there's like a little bit of air in there. You'll start to see changes in the salami.
There's casing on the Creminelli stuff.
Crate casing on Creminelli, not on Del Duca. And just one, I didn't get into this, but all of the Del Duca chubs are no longer going to be in this paper sleeve. It's not necessarily cost effective. It's still going to be vacuum packed, but it's going to be in the exact same packaging and the Del Duca brand.
That one's shelf stable?
Both shelf stable. Both are 270 days on all shelf stable items for Creminelli. All Del Duca items are currently 240 days. But shelf stable also includes this. Shelf stable also includes these bulk packs as well. All right, so that leads me into our core item assortment. When we talk with retailers, when we talk with customers, when I talk with distributors, and they're going to sell to a customer and they're like, yes, you always want to look at like what are they missing in their set, because like I said, there's a lot of charcuterie out there. But we say you need to start, for any set, you need to start with these items right here. And there's reasoning behind that. So like I said, the prosciutto, like I said, everyone is familiar with prosciutto. Prosciutto is charcuterie is a household name. It kind of blew up in COVID. People just know what it is. Coppa, it's giving that whole muscle cut. It's kind of different than a ground salami. And then pepperoni. The items that are growing the most, like I said, in the very back of this, you don't need to look, but I put in a slide that has data about the category. Salami items overall, meaning stuff like Varzi, or that's Coppa again, stuff like Varzi, stuff like hard, Genoa, Sopressata, those are actually slowing down in sales. They're not doing as well as they were. What is growing, you'll see, is prosciutto, pepperoni, and all other. All other includes the mortadellas, the coppas. That's what's truly growing the category. There's a lot of salami out there, and like I said, everyone kind of does Genoas and Sopressatas and hards. So really, like when you're talking with customers, it's sliced items in particular are the ones growing the most, and it's your prosciuttos, pepperonis, coppas, mortadellas. What is significantly declining in the category is chubs. Chubs are almost seasonal. You need them because you're still going to get 1 to 2 units per store per week, but really we've identified basically 4 holidays where they sell the most. That's around the Super Bowl, Father's Day, all of November, and all of December. And that's just because a lot of times they're gifted, and like the thought process behind consumers is like, well, men like salami and they want to, dad's used to having the summer sausage, which is true. My dad gets those little summer sausage with the cheddar cheese every single year. I'm like, Dad, I work for a salami company. Okay, let me give you this. But those are really like, chubs are down, shelf stable overall is down, and then snack packs. Snack packs are generally one of the biggest areas for opportunity that retailers are missing, because they're still a huge consumer. People are lazy. I'm lazy. I don't want to have to go and cut up a chub, so I'm more inclined to buy something like this. This is a meal replacement. This is an adult Lunchable, and it's so easy, and they're grab-and-go sets. Like, you need this. Retailers need this, and we've found that it almost needs to be in a separate spot from where all of the meat and cheese and the coppas and the mortadellas. It needs to be in a separate spot. It needs to be in like a grab-and-go area. Like I said, I know getting a retailer to do it, they're going to make the decision, but that's kind of the thought process behind it. So back to these items, this saying like if you start with Creminelli, this is what you need to start with. And that expands into like our bigger 4.5 ounce packs. That's these right here. These are showing a lot of growth because people are like, well, I don't want to buy 3 trays at $4.99 or $5.99 when I can get 3 different salamis in one package. That's $8.99. I saw this at Whole Foods yesterday for $7.49. 4.5 ounces of of product. So that's the thought process behind this. Any questions there on any of those products? All right. Del Duca. Same thought processes behind this. Like if you start, you need that middle tier brand. There's the thing that's cool about, like I said, there's a lot more pack sizes, flavors, and occasions for Del Duca. And that's going to give you the vacuum packed aspect. Like I said, way more shelf life than this, and it can be placed in baskets. We have shippers that have 6-ounce product. We have shippers that have 3-ounce product, which are available now. And then you get these spicy variety. You get a Spanish variety. That's one thing I want to talk about is how I was saying the category is saturated, and everyone has your Italian hardware. That's what we call it. But where things are growing, having some differentiation, but their safe products are Spanish flavored items. There's a broad Hispanic population, really just in the US, and people are familiar with items like chorizo and jamon serrano. And those are kind of that Spanish flavor. And we're seeing more customers bring in items like that to add to their set. And Spanish items are under indexed, just meaning a lot of people don't have a good variety, but there's more growth in those items than there is in like a Genoa. So we have our 3-ounce chorizo, 3-ounce jamon serrano. We have a Spanish variety pack that has salchichon, chorizo, and jamon serrano in it. When it's like, well, you kind of have the same items, it's like, oh, well, look, there's more. And that's kind of where Del Duca, that's where you're going to start with. And the people here, like I said, they have an item catalog. You don't on Virtua. I'll send that out to you. But the Del Duca portfolio is so much bigger. We do things like these little antipasto trays, entertaining trays, whatever you want to call them, snack packs, differentiation. We have things with like olives in it. Okay, any questions? They want to be able to see me. I guess that'd be helpful. You're not just hearing a voice talking. All right, one thing, this is just some high level stuff. And before we get into like building a board, I want to open it up for questions. Creminelli, we're doing a label refresh. And as you can see here, we've got, basically it's very similar packaging to what we have here. It's just making it a little bit more simple and clean. And on the back, we currently have these pictures. Our chief commercial officer called it bros on the go, going out and like snacking, and like they did a trip to Japan and Italy. It was super cool. I didn't get to go. But they're just like, yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So like, how can we put something on the back that's helpful for the consumer? So we're updating this to have pairings, and it's typically going to have like a cheese, and with prosciutto, something that goes really well with prosciutto is cantaloupe, and then you've got your wines. But it could have a chocolate on the back, it could have a cracker. So we're just doing this, and we initially came out, we talked to Cristiano, and he was like, oh, this really goes with this. And I'm like, what does that cheese even mean, or where does it even come from? I'm like, we have to put stuff on the back that people are going to be able to find in most stores. So we're kind of revising that a little bit. And another thing you'll see is a flavor profile index, and that's going to have salty, sweet, and then intensity or heat. So it's just like, oh, okay, if I eat this, like if it's a chorizo, it's going to be higher on the intensity scale, lower on the sweetness scale. Just things like that to make it more appealing. And basically the idea is like to build basket building at retailers. And you're starting to see this, it's more common whether it's on shelf talkers or whether it's on the product itself with pairing recommendations. So it kind of encourages the customer or prompts the thought for them to go grab some crackers and cheese as well. All right, so that's coming out. Another thing we are doing, we are looking at increasing for Creminelli and Del Duca is our animal welfare standards. And there's going to be some changes as well. We're looking at getting higher quality pork for some particular lines. Creminelli is going to be it's going to have even better pork coming up. And that should be by 2026. All right. Okay, Charcuterie Artisans display vehicles. I've actually shipped these to a handful of the reps from Euro USA. These are available. Crates, that's this right here. This is made to hold the chubs. These are free. These are complimentary of us. Also, we have these boards, and like I said, it's not really going to work at a store. This is more for you reps. If you're doing a meeting or you just want to give something nice to a key customer, let us know. We will send these to you, or we will send them directly to the customer. That includes the crates as well. We have these little plastic display trays, which are propping up the salami. Basically, this is for people, retailers to put in their shelves. Those are free as well. And then these wooden display stands. I didn't get one here, but those hold the salami minis. It's got 4, pegs, just like you can see in the picture. Those are free as well. We're also working on in-store like sliders and pushers that can go into shelves for the bigger customers that are like, hey, I want something even better. And like that's an investment for us, but we're willing to do that for your key accounts. All right, and if you do need those, that's just follow up with me. I'll send out a recap with this. Let me know who and how many. All right, holiday items. This is to just, most of these are Del Duca focused because they have more products. There's just more that I feel like appeals as like a holiday item versus Creminelli holidays. We really try to push variety packs. These do really well for like Thanksgiving and Christmas because people are entertaining at home. And then same with these. This is one of the big holiday items. We sell a ton of these in Q4. And that really starts just before Halloween is when they really start taking off because of entertaining occasions. The hot 6-ounce variety pack, these paninis, the chubs, and then these floor shippers. Like I said, that's really great. These shippers take a lot of risk out of the warehouse and out of the customer's hands just because you're getting a meat item and it has 240-day shelf life. And shippers are pretty much made to order, so they're gonna get really fresh product. We have a really, really good program. We have some new shippers. One that I wanna call out, we do have a Humane Serrano and a Chorizo shipper. Just some really cool flavors. I've got a little packet I can send out after. All right, next slide is artisan salami. This is your item catalog. These are all of the items that Euro USA carries. The 1.1 ounce minis, I'm gonna remove those. We were originally going to push that product line. We're gonna wait on that for now until we have a better merchandising and display vehicle for it. Your item catalog. It's got all the pictures of the items and then it's got the Euro USA item code under it. So this is our shelf stable line, a call out, it's got 270 days. These are the snacking / retail items. These need to be refrigerated. These all have 120 days. And then you've got the bulk line. We have a broader bulk line than what's showing here. We just don't have a lot of that pushing through you at Euro USA right now. But these are all available. And this 12-ounce bulk sliced prosciutto, we're starting to see that item catch up to be like our number 3, number 4 overall item. It's interleafed, it's cut, it's thinly sliced. It's really good product, and a lot of people are buying that to also just entertain or cook with. And that, I believe, was the last. That's that. That is the slides, and I did want to do 2 things before we're done. I wanted to make a charcuterie